growing sector of the maritime industry. As the tonnage of superyachts increases, so does their passenger carrying capacity. So when you work on a superyacht, safety is at the very core of your professionalism. It's a major part of the pride you take in being part of a closely knit team and working in a very special environment. This disc is part of a series of programs for superyachts, which looks at all the different ways you can improve your own safety and the safety of the people around you. Not just the people you work with, but the yacht's owner, their guests, and anyone else on board. You should have already done your basic safety training on shore to STCW standards. What we'll be covering is safety familiarization once you're on board. Every superyacht is different and prides itself on being different. And although the design and equipment used may be different from what you see in this video, the principles of onboard safety remain the same. The next chapter covers what you need to know immediately you're on board. After that, we cover what you need to know in the first 48 hours. If your job means you need to get involved in operations such as using a crane or launching a tender, then you need to look at those chapters in one of the other programs in this series, Superyacht Safe Working Practices. But first we start with the first stage of familiarization training, something all new crew must be given when coming aboard.
Okay, and then here, your next...
Every crew member, whether experienced or not, must have safety familiarization training. If there's an emergency, at the very least, you need to know what to do and where to go. Even if you're not a member of the actual crew, but you're working on board, perhaps as a nanny or a masseur, you still need this safety induction training. And even if you've worked on this yacht before, if you've been away for more than 2 months, then you need to do this training again. You're responsible for knowing exactly where your life jacket is, and for knowing how to put it on in an emergency.
It's located under your bunk, under here.
Remember that you might need to find it in low lighting, or in smoke.
Right arm, left arm, and that's over your head, exactly.
Make sure you understand the instructions for putting it on.
We've got a whistle for attracting attention. And the main thing to remember here is if we do have to jump into the water, then you're going to want to put your arms across the front to stop that from riding up.
And you need to know where to find your smoke hood and how to put it on. More details will be in the Superyacht Safety Training Manual. Also, in or near your cabin, there's a fire extinguisher. Make sure you know exactly where it's kept. Fire extinguishers come in different types, depending on the type of fire. The cabin extinguisher will usually be a dry powder type. Check the instructions on the extinguisher to see which type it is, and how and where it should be used. All superyachts will be fitted with smoke alarms, which will indicate the source of the fire on the fire control panel in the bridge and often the engine room.
And when the alarms go off anywhere around the boat, it will alarm here and say where it's gone off. And we can then see on this plan what number head has gone off. Say it's 85, and then we know exactly where it is in which cabin, and we can do a PA announcement to inform the fire party.
If you discover a fire, raise the alarm immediately, giving the location and some basic information about the type of fire. Press the nearest fire alarm button to set off the alarm and shout "fire" loudly. And use the nearest suitable fire extinguisher, bearing in mind your own personal safety. You need to know the different types of alarm signals, which vary depending on the emergency. For a fire, the fire alarm will sound continuously. And you may also hear the yacht's horn blowing constantly. If you hear just the horn, 3 short blasts, and then 1 long blast, that means there's a man overboard. If you hear 7 or more short blasts of the horn, and then a long blast, that's an emergency alarm. However, the pattern of these alarms might vary with individual yachts. So you'll need to find and learn details of these alarms on the muster list, which also has your muster stations and duties. You need to know where to find the muster list. If you hear any of those, you need to go to the emergency muster station. The muster station is where you gather so the captain or another officer can take a head count and check everyone is safe.
Okay, everyone quiet, listening.
For most super yachts, it's the aft deck.
Johnny?
Yep.
Chisco?
Yep.
Anna? Yep.
You need to know how to get there, which, in an emergency, might not be as simple as you think.
Anna?
Your emergency escape route will be on the safety plan in the crew mess. The route will have emergency lighting. Make sure it's always kept clear. If there's smoke, you may have to exit on your hands and knees. And you may need to find an alternative route to get to the muster station. It's a good idea to practice the route a few times, so you can literally do it with your eyes closed. That way, you'll also be calmer if there's an emergency. If you can stay calm yourself, that's the best way to keep others calm. Once you get to the muster station, wait to be told what to do.
Okay, and Johnny and Anna, if you go starboard side, we've got the hose, the boundary calling on the starboard main deck. Okay?
Remember, you need to consider other people's safety as well as your own. Alcohol can affect your performance on board. Make sure you know the yacht's policy on drugs and alcohol as soon as you join. Fatigue is also dangerous, so each crew member must be aware of the rules concerning hours of work and rest. So that's the first part of your safety induction, and you now have just 48 hours to complete the next stage. Within 48 hours of joining as a new crew member, you need to have a thorough understanding of safety. That means for yourself and for those around you. Every yacht will have a plan showing the location of all the life-saving appliances and firefighting equipment on board. By the end of your first 2 days, you need to have studied the plan and located everything.
The fire extinguishers are located on the plan. On each deck, you'll see again.
You also need to have a good look at the safety training manual, since that's the first step in knowing how to use the equipment properly. And there are plenty of other things you need to know as well. Let's start with the safety signs and symbols. It's best practice to display as much signage as possible, but on a super yacht, the safety signs are generally kept as discreet as possible, and sometimes you have to look hard to find them. There'll be a list of what the symbols mean in the safety training manual, or on larger yachts, in the documentation for the safety management system. Remember that in an emergency, you might be looking for these in the dark, or in bad weather. That means it can be very important to memorize the location of equipment such as fire extinguishers. And also memorize escape routes, not just for yourself, but for other crew and for guests as well. Primary and secondary escape routes are shown on the safety plan and vary from yacht to yacht. Larger yachts may well have separate escape routes for crew and guests, and it is essential that all crew are aware of all of them. You may well be ordered to guide evacuation from unfamiliar parts of the vessel, and you will be responsible for the safety and security of those following your directions. The next thing to understand are the different types of doors on board. Fire doors are internal doors, designed to inhibit the spread of fire. They're the ones that are usually spring-loaded, so they close automatically. They must never be propped open or blocked. Sometimes they close automatically when the fire alarm sounds. Make sure you know which doors are fire doors.
This is an automatic fire door which gets triggered when the fire alarm goes off. I can demonstrate that by pressing the button here and the door shuts.
Weathertight doors are designed to keep water and spray from entering the yacht. Watertight doors are more robust internal and external doors with watertight seals, which may be clamped shut. Some will slide shut, and you need to be aware that they may move unexpectedly. You need to stand well clear when they are opening or closing, and you need to know where the controls are to open them.
So what we'll do now is I'll get you to close the door by pressing this red button here. There will be an alarm sound, okay? If you keep your fingers...
Super yachts carry a range of life-saving appliances, and it's important you're familiar with all of them. You'll already know from the location plan where the life jackets are kept, as well as the immersion suits and smoke hoods. There may be spare life jackets on the bridge, and probably other places as well, for example on escape routes. It's important to know where children's life jackets are located, usually in the guest accommodation, as you may find yourself responsible for the younger passengers. And there'll be auto-inflating life jackets, most often used when you're working over the side of the yacht, or in the tenders. Life rings also come in various types. Some have a floating line. Some have a light unit attached, which is activated when the life ring hits the water, and lasts for 2 hours. Some also have a smoke unit with the light, which is also activated by water. It has a delayed action, and the smoke then lasts for 15 minutes. This is a good point to go through what you should do immediately if you see someone fall overboard.
Man overboard! Man overboard!
The most important thing is to raise the alarm. You need to shout, "Man overboard!" Then throw them a life ring. If you can, throw them one with a light and smoke unit, but the most important thing is speed.
Bridge, man overboard, starboard side.
Tell the bridge as quickly as possible by any means you can.
Copy, understood. Man overboard, starboard side.
Keep your eyes fixed on the person in the water and point towards them. Do that for as long as possible. If you take your eyes off them, you may not see them when you look back. The captain will sound the man overboard signal and post other lookouts to keep the person in sight and help in the search. If you're at sea, the yacht will turn round to retrieve them.
Press the man overboard button, yeah?
They'll be recovered by the man overboard recovery system, which is usually the rescue boat carried by the yacht. If you're at sea and someone on board can't be found on the yacht, they may be in the water. So if someone goes missing, you need to report that to the bridge immediately. This may result in the conclusion that there has been an unwitnessed man overboard, and a search and rescue effort starts straight away. There are more details in the International Aviation and Maritime Search and Rescue Book, IAMSAR, which it's recommended should be on board. If the yacht itself gets into trouble, it has an emergency position indicating radio beacon, or EPIRB. The beacon sends a signal giving its position. Modern EPIRBs are combined in one unit with search and rescue transponders, or SARTs, which also identify your position to rescuers. Emergency handheld VHF radios are kept on the bridge fully charged, along with a signalling lamp and battery pack, rocket signals to highlight your position, and a line thrower to pass a line to the shore or a rescue vessel. Finally, there are life rafts. Each one is fitted with a hydrostatic release. If they're submerged at a depth of 4 meters, they're released automatically and will float free. All of the accommodation for guests and crew, as well as the engine room, have fire and smoke detectors. They're linked to a fire alarm panel. There'll be one on the bridge and another in the crew mess. When the fire alarm goes off, it may tell you the location of the suspected fire. On the bridge, there's a sprinkler control panel. And the engine room and the galley have fire suppression systems to smother fires. The fire main has hoses and hydrants around the yacht, so that water and foam can be directed onto the area of the fire. There will also be emergency escape breathing devices, EEBDs, which you'll be shown by the safety officer, and there may also be smoke hoods. EEBDs have compressed air, which lasts for a minimum of 10 minutes, and are designed to be pulled on easily and quickly, without any complicated adjustments. These are only for escape, not for rescue or firefighting. Make sure you're familiar with the instructions for putting them on.
So the thing to check with these is to make sure that it's in the green before putting it on. And then it's following the signs here. It goes over your head, and then you pull.
By the end of 48 hours, you should be made aware of security issues. On larger yachts, the ISPS code stipulates the measures needed to manage security. ISPS stands for the International Ship and Port Facility Security Code. Vessels and ports normally operate at security level 1. You'll have some specific security policies as well. For example, security cameras to monitor gangways when you're in port, controlling access to the yacht, and keeping the visitor's logbook up to date.
Here we can manipulate these cameras. We've got a zoom in function here.
Make sure you know and understand the yacht security procedures. You'll be briefed on these by the ship's security officer. There's one more vital aspect which you should be aware of: environmental protection. You need to understand the obligations that exist to prevent pollution that are imposed by an international convention known as MARPOL. Under one annex to the MARPOL Convention, the disposal of waste and garbage is controlled. It's illegal to dispose of most waste and garbage into the water. Never dispose of plastic into the water. The yacht will have a waste management plan with detailed procedures for collecting, storing, processing, and disposing of garbage. Senior crew will advise you on what to do, and when and how to separate waste.
You know, there's certain things which we don't throw over the side between 3 or 12 nautical miles offshore. So you need to study this plan.
In your first 2 days on board, there are many safety issues to understand. Things to do over the next few days include getting a better understanding of the captain's and the chief engineer's standing orders. And if you're on a yacht which has a documented safety management system, or SMS, get to grips with the relevant parts of it. Make sure you know who's responsible for safety, medical care, and security, and who represents the crew on the Yacht Safety Committee. Basic first aid is something that you've covered in your onshore basic safety training. One of the first things to do on board is to make sure you know where the medical and first aid equipment is kept.
Up here is medical locker. In here we have the stretcher and the rest of the medical equipment just around the corner there as well.
In other programs in this series, we look at drills, where you practice how to deal with an emergency. And we look at the working practices you need to use to stay safe while you're on board.